A destructive fear could be the fear of being alone, so you rush into a relationship even though the guy is a total loser. I did this. Not currently. But when I was 16, I did not want to be alone. Like everyone else seemed to be paired up, and I'm like, I gotta get a guy. And so finally this guy showed me some interest, and I'm like, great, I've got a guy. All my friends said, he is bad news. I'm like, I don't know, I don't hear you, because I don't want to be alone, I've got a guy. Well, it turned out to be not a good relationship. Here's another fear. Fear people won't like you, so you become a people pleaser, and you can't say no. This is a very common fear, isn't it? And often we don't sit there and think it through, like, I am saying yes to this person because I have a fear that people won't like me. It's not like we really sit there and think about this, but that's the fear that's working in the subconscious. Fear that people won't like me, so I become this people pleaser and I can't say no. Or fear that you won't be able to take care of yourself on your own, so you stay with an abusive husband. Or you refuse to separate even though your husband is doing all sorts of terribly immoral, sinful things. You refuse to separate, or whatever action is needed, because I just don't think I'll be able to take care of myself, and you're racked with anxiety and fear about that. Here's another one. Fear that people won't respect or admire you if you don't accomplish big things. So you become an overly busy, driven, high achiever kind of person, exhausting yourself, driving everyone nuts around you because you are a high achiever, you have to prove something, because you have a fear that people won't respect or admire you if you don't do that. Maybe, here's another one, fear of strongly expressed emotions or angry responses by your husband, so you do everything possible to avoid conflict. You never bring up any issues, you do everything his way, because you're a conflict avoider, because you fear, what if there's an angry response? I also have to hold up my hand on this one. I'm getting better, I'm getting so much better, but that's still my default, to have that subconscious destructive fear saying, don't say anything that Raul could disagree with, because what if he were to get really angry and upset and I wouldn't be able to handle that? And see how that just kind of works behind the scenes? Here's another one. Fear that your life will be miserable if your husband fails to meet your desires, so you nag, manipulate, and bully him into doing things your way. I know that doesn't affect anyone in this room. Okay. Everyone's looking at me like this blank look. I have no idea what you're even talking about. Here's another fear. Fear that your children won't love you if you don't let them do everything they want to do, and if you don't bail them out of all of their consequences, and so you end up doing everything you can to bend over backwards for your kids, and you enable them and you bail them out, and all because you fear they won't love you. Fear that you can't have joy unless your husband and children turn out exactly how you want, so you try to control them. So let's get to some good stuff about how to deal with fears. Productive ways to deal with destructive fears and overcome them. Number one, make sure you have made Jesus your Lord and that you are seeking righteousness. Make sure that you've made Jesus your Lord and that you're seeking righteousness. Then you can be assured that God is watching out for you. Huge. I want to read to you Psalm 112. It says, surely the righteous will never be shaken. They will be remembered forever. They will have no fear of bad news. Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord. Their hearts are secure. They will have no fear. In the end, they will look in triumph on their foes. Isn't that a great psalm? Psalm 112, verses 6 through 8. So have you asked Jesus to be your Lord? Are you really making him your Lord, as in trying to obey him? Not doing it perfectly, because no one can, but are you really seeking to honor him, to obey him? Is your heart inclined that way? If it is, then you are the person described in Psalm 112. Surely the righteous person will never be shaken. That's you, and you can have that confidence in God. So that's number one. Number two, bring your worries to God through prayer. Bring your worries to God through prayer. Ask him to take care of you and your loved ones and to bring about his perfect will in your life. His perfect will in your life. You might be familiar with Psalm 4, verses 6 and 7, but I just want to read it because it's just kind of huge for what we're talking about tonight. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Isn't that awesome? We're supposed to bring our requests to God instead of just being all anxious. And, if you're like me, I'm just being honest here, I'm just being real. My first response when things are going badly and I'm starting to be in a place of fear is to call 3 girlfriends and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe all this is happening. And then I'm like, and I'm like taking a walk and I'm like, and I'm thinking of all these thoughts. And occasionally I think, I should pray about this. But then I start taking it all back and I'm thinking about what I should be doing and how I should handle this. And I can't believe this is happening. And it's like God saying, hello, don't be anxious. Just bring it to me. Hello. And when I do that, it's so much better. But don't we all tend to, maybe I'm the only one. I think some of you do this too, where we just tend to yell in a tizzy and frazzled, and we're biting people's heads off, and we're calling girlfriends to commiserate, and God's just like, I'm right here. Just present your requests to me, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. But I'd like to say that I find it to be really helpful to really focus on the middle part of the Lord's Prayer, which is in Matthew 6, verse 10. And the middle part of the Lord's Prayer says, your kingdom come, your will be done. I try to finish every prayer that way because I am not smarter than God. I know you guys are shocked about that, but I am not smarter than God. He has a perfect plan for everything. And so even when I'm bringing all my concerns and saying, can you fix this? Can you heal this person? Can you, it's like, but Lord, your perfect will be done, because that gives me confidence. That takes away the fear right then. Because if I'm in charge of God and telling him what to do, probably things are going to turn out badly. But if I just say, Lord, here are my concerns, your perfect will be done, that brings peace to my heart, knowing that he is smarter than me and he will make the perfect thing happen. Because that's really the final point here. Coach your soul about what is true. Coach your soul about what is true. And if you missed last week, I'd invite you to go back and listen to the podcast on our Squadron of Sisters website, because I think this was really, it turned out to be, I think, a really pivotal teaching for us, because King David talked to his soul and coached his soul all the time. And coaching your soul is reminding your soul of what is true, reminding that inner part of you what is true. So let's give ourselves some specific things that we can tell our soul when we're in a place of fear, or when we see that we've got this subconscious, deeply rooted destructive fear. First, remind your soul that God is watching over you. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Remind your soul not to fear any person, since God is more powerful than any person. Because often we live in fear of people. What will they think of me? Will they hurt me? Will they betray me? Will they approve of me? Will they like me? Will they love me? We have all these fears unrelated to people, right? And Hebrews 13:6 says, so we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? An awesome verse. What can mere mortals do to me? I've got God as my helper. I will not be afraid. Here's another one. Remind your soul that even if something unpleasant happens, God will work to bring about something really good in that situation. And this is key too, right? Because there will be trouble. Jesus said, in this world, you will have trouble. I hate that verse. Well, I shouldn't say I hate that verse. Don't strike me with lightning. But who really likes that verse? Who would say, that's my life verse? But God said, in this world, you will have trouble. So it isn't like that we're going to avoid trouble. But when trouble comes, I love to remind my soul of this. Romans 8:28, and you probably all know it, but we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. So to rest in that assurance, Lord, I don't know what you're going to do here, but I'm pretty sure you're going to do something that's going to be really, really good, right?